Telegram live location, drew a line to his door. The red dot moved like it had a plan for my evening. I was at the warehouse when my phone decided to be intimate. A telegram bubble popped up from Myra, my wife, with the kind of breathless utility we use for cabs and lost keys. Live location shared for 1 hour. The map opened to the city like a wound. Her dot blinked on a street I knew too well, then started sliding west with the confidence of a sentence that already knows its period. I didn't ask why she sent it. We share locations when taxis look risky or the night feels like an unmarked alley. Her message carried no words, only the chaperone of a blinking circle. Under the map, a second bubble stacked itself. Roman, the man whose name now sits on a shelf in my skull-labeled evidence, had shared his live location too, forwarded careless to the same group chat we once used for logistics. The two dots, hers aqua, his fuchsia, began traveling in parallel like a duet testing whether harmony is actually betrayal. I watched them move across neighborhoods, past my screen's memory of mornings I liked and evenings I refused to describe. Her dot paused outside Dash's bar, always a way station, never a destination, then accelerated. His dot approached from the river, late but sure. The little banner at the top kept announcing their distances like sports commentary. 1.1 km apart, 800 m 400. The map zoomed without asking me whether I wanted to be a witness or a wall. I told the foreman a forklift needed counseling and stepped outside. The air tasted like the part of rain that specializes in reminders. I set my phone on the hood of the van and watched two colors learn about each other on my dime. They converged at a door I recognized by smell. It belongs to an apartment in a Soviet bloc that pretends it never needed grace. The pins settled, then the little share timer kept counting down, blue ring like a clock deciding what kind of man I should be. 38 minutes left in the hour. I didn't sprint there. I didn't stage an ambush for a camera that only exists in my head. I let the map teach me a new form of patience. Then I called her. "Your dot arrived," I said when she answered. Silence first, the honest kind. "I know," she said. "I sent it so you'd have to decide whether to watch or move." "Both," I said, "because I am not as clever as I wish to be, but I can do more than one thing badly." I drove. The city folded around the van with the cooperative indifference that makes me love it. At red lights, the dots waited on my screen together now, fused in a single blush of proximity that made the app's legend redundant. Outside his building, I parked wrong, then more wrong, then decided this kind of wrong is why curbs exist. The entrance smelled like damp wool and coins. I walked upstairs that remembered knees I no longer have. At the second-floor landing, the door to 24 was open, not wide, not dramatic. A wedge held it like an apology. Inside, Roman had the decency to be in a kitchen. Myra stood by the window, arms crossed over her chest like a person who has chosen sincerity as her sport tonight. They both looked at me as if I were a meeting neither of them actually believed could happen this way. The air had the particular temperature of rooms that think they understand sin. "You sent me a map," I said, stepping in far enough for the door to choose sides. "I was tired of assigning blame to geometry," she said. "I wanted you to see the root or change it." Roman wiped his hands on a dish towel with the graceless elegance I now associate with men who design spaces for living and sometimes try to inhabit them. "I'll leave," he said, and I surprised myself by raising a hand. "Not yet," I said. "Confessions are useful when someone who does like you hears them." He nodded, the towel taking on the role of prop. We stood in a small kitchen together like a tutorial in what rooms are for. "This was supposed to be goodbye," he said, "because that line follows him like a dog that doesn't know where to sit." Myra smirked without humor. "He likes finales," she told me. "I like beginnings. We both hate middles. That's why we're idiots." I put my phone on the table. The tiny banner still showed her live location, which felt obscene. I tapped to end it. The blue ring died, leaving an ordinary map of streets that didn't need my permission. "No more lines," I said. "We talk with our mouths or our hands, not our apps." The kitchen had no chairs, design choice or recent accident, so we leaned like old trees. I said the thing my mouth had decided to stand behind. 21 days, I told Myra. 3 weeks of no maps, no routes that require legend. If you want heat, you ask me for it with your face, not your data. If you want risk, you take it where the rent knows our names. At the end, if your body still wants to draw a line to his door, you can do it with a pen. But you won't be able to pretend I didn't offer you a map with fewer exits and more rooms. She nodded like the offer had been rehearsing inside her skull. "And what do you put where the line used to be?" she asked. "Now," I said. "Not tomorrow when I'm less responsible. Not later when the kitchen is more photogenic. Now like the only verb I'm not embarrassed to use." Her mouth made that gull-wing shape it makes when honesty lands and asks for a glass of water. "Do you want me now?" she asked, and Roman found the doorknob like a man who doesn't need coaching to leave. "I do," I said to her, "and I don't want an audience." He stepped into the hall with more grace than I expected, closing the door with the careful click of a person who has learned that volume is a choice. We stood alone, then together, then touching. It wasn't cinematic. It was specific. Her forearms warm, the lemon laundry of her hair, the strange perfect angle where the cupboard edge meets her spine and persuades the body to confess. We kissed as if the point were to ruin the idea that kitchens need light to function. It would pass YouTube, but it made air perform tasks it had not been certified for. We stopped before the room learned too much. I took her hand. "Home," I said, "now." She looked around as if she were trying to inventory what she would be abandoning. "He's a good exit," she said. "He has a face that looks like permission. He listens as if I invented nouns, but he is not a house." "That is the best insult I've ever received," I said, and we left. At home, we did the ordinary things with indecent precision. She dropped her bag, I put water on. We did not raise our voices even when the silence threw elbows. In the hallway, she took my face in both hands, the old devotional, and said, "If I ask, answer." Then she asked. I answered. We built a practice out of dumb rules and gentle audits. No live locations unless someone is actually lost. No geography in bed. No saying later if we mean not at all. If jealousy knocks, we make it wash its hands and carry groceries. Day 2, I failed and admitted it. She texted now from the elevator mirror. I stared at a spreadsheet that had taught itself to be my witness and typed, "Give me 15." And then, because I am trying, deleted it and wrote, "Coming." We met in our hallway. We used the wall as furniture. We laughed at the way the floor still remembers us from the year we had almost no chairs. Day 4, I walked past Dash's bar and saw Roman at a table outside, hands empty in the way that earns you trust. He glanced up. We did the nod men do when a woman's dignity is the only thing in the room worth worshiping, and neither of us owns it. He raised a glass of water like a man practicing sobriety from himself. I raised nothing and kept walking. Day 6, the city decided to be loud on our behalf. A storm performed. We stood on the balcony barefoot, watching faraway windows have opinions about light. She leaned into me and said, "I keep thinking I'm supposed to want the pink line to make my choices easier." I said, You're supposed to want your mouth to make them, and she smiled into my shirt. Day 7. I took her to the botanical garden where people go to pretend glass invented paradise. We set our phones to silence in a bowl by the entrance like a religion. We got lost on purpose between the ferns that refused to apologize for being older than everyone's shame. She tucked a leaf behind my ear and took it back, laughing like a person who has decided to spend her breath locally. Day 9. I found an old map in a drawer, creased with the kind of optimism that makes paper invincible. It was from the road trip we did the year we learned we could be poor without being small. We pinned it to the cork board by the door like a dare. "Lines that matter," she said, and I used a pen to trace the path we took to the stupid lake where we almost drowned in a moment that still feels like a blessing. Day 10, we fought about nothing to test whether nothing could handle it. A sock where a sock should never be. A glass auditioning to be art. The fight lasted 5 sentences and an apology that used touch as grammar. When we were done, the house got bigger by 2 square meters. Day 12, Roman sent one message. I moved from that apartment and nothing else. Myra took a photo of our cork board and sent it back. No caption. He didn't reply. The silence was the decent kind, the kind that sticks to its job. Day 15. My mother called and tried to talk about the war through recipes. We cooked what she said badly and sent her pictures. She wrote back a heart. Myra took my phone and texted her a photo of us sitting on the floor with soup on our knees like teenagers who inherited a kitchen. "He eats," she wrote. "He sleeps." My mother replied with a prayer and 3 emojis and one word, keep. On day 18, the map got its revenge. I lost myself in work and forgot my promise to touch first, speak later. Myra sent a pin, not live location, just a static dot on the corner by the bakery and wrote, choose. I put down the clipboard like a weapon you can't bring into this room and chose. The pin was waiting. She was leaning against the bakery's window, a paper bag against her hip, the smell of ordinary bread doing the world's real medicine. "Now?" she asked. "Here," I said, and kissed her while people pretended to be their errands. We walked home sharing the loaf like a cheap wedding we finally earned. On day 21, nothing extraordinary happened to justify the math. We woke to the dumb gray that keeps roofs in business. She asked the question that has kept us from outsourcing ourselves. "Do you still want me now?" And I said always, knowing I am responsible for making that word worth saying. We made coffee like a treaty. We put on ugly socks. We lived. Later, I opened Telegram and went to our chat. At the top, the preview still remembered the rectangle where live location had once been. I pressed and held until a menu appeared. Clear history it offered, the way machines like to make courage look like housekeeping. I didn't clear it. I scrolled back to the day with 2 dots and forwarded it to myself with a note. Never again lines that apologies have to cross. Then I muted the chat for a year because I am not a saint and I like dumb guardrails. We kept going. We still fail sometimes. The world is skilled at drawing lines where you don't want them. Apps will always try to make obedience look sexy. But now, when a map tries to narrate us, we let the dot die and let our mouths be the legend. Last night she came home with rain on her shoulders and a bag of peaches the color of the inside of a mouth. She set them on the counter and said now in the gentle way, the way that means the request is a door, not a demand. I answered with my hands. The city took a breath. The house remembered where we pay the rent. My phone lay face down on the shelf, screen black as a good secret. If it had a map open, it didn't matter. The only coordinates were her hip under my palm, the warm edge of the counter, the small necessary laugh in my throat when she pulled me closer. If you need a lesson an app can understand, do not share a live location you're not prepared to arrive at. If you want the human version, End the map and say the word. Now, then build a home that knows where you are without your phone's permission.